The devil's on the loose and he's dancing with the mummy.
Deep from the bowels of the Macabre Theater Laboratory, we bring you Macabre Cast. There is nothing wrong with your streaming service. You are exactly where you should be, where the slush puppy machine is always on and cold. Your favorite horror mag is on the rack, discreetly displayed between Women's Wear Daily and Cosmopolitan. I'm your host, Dark Mark, along with my mold-riddled counterpart, Karis, the Little Mummy, here to bring you the latest episode of Macabre Cast, where we'll be dropping ours where they belong and adding them where they don't. Newbies welcome, regulars welcome back, and worshippers, get out of here. This is a safe space for those who spent whole Saturdays standing in line in the 80s during opening weekend of the next horror flick, as each show became sold out and you only had a prayer of getting a ticket to a show that day. If you haven't already, click that subscribe button and follow us on Spotify, YouTube, or TikTok. Tell a friend to do the same, even that guy who insists Pippet was never eaten but went home for dinner. Yeah, that guy. If you wish to interact with fellow Monster Kids or the Drac Pack Elite, follow the Facebook page Macabre Theater. It's there where you can send me a voice message through Messenger and become part of the show. A link can be found in the description of this episode. Macabre Cast episode 143 in all its glory begins now.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Adoro il cast macabro.
Macabre.
All things H.P. Lovecraft.
I'm getting too old for this.
Yeah, you're only 3,000 years old. What's the matter? You don't like H.P. Lovecraft? Or what, you can't read?
That's hilarious. I don't particularly like his racial profiling, shall we call it that?
Yes, based on when these stories were written, there are some off-color names, but, not in every story.
So, Doc, today I asked Siri why I'm still single.
So let me get this straight. You spoke into your phone and asked Siri why you're still single. Well, what did Siri say?
Siri didn't say anything. Siri just activated my front camera.
And on that note, it's time for horror news. In the late 90s, Tobe Hooper's son, William Hooper, was set to direct a follow-up to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, called All-American Massacre, with Bill Moseley reprising his role as Chop Top. Supposedly, 60 minutes of film still exists somewhere. Dragon Studios, the creators of Driller Killer 2, claim that they are completing All-American Massacre. Bill Moseley, however, has taken to social media to say BS. Bill is good friends with William Hooper and says, I know exactly what's going on with this project and Dragon Studios has nothing to do with it. This is what he called a sad attempt to get money from people. And their claim that they are working on this, Bill Moseley again says, is BS. James Wan wants to make the next Saw movie scary like the first one was, the original Saw. Was that scary? Scream 7 opens February 27th, and a reboot of the infamous Faces of Death releases this April. Yeah, good luck recreating that magic. And that's it for horror news. And Draven agrees. Draven the blood-vomiting bat. Children of the night, why what messes they make. So I had my annual checkup with the good doc. And, 90% of the time as I've said a million times, I dress as though I'm still 15 years old. So I went there with my glorious creature from the Black Lagoon shirt, which he recognized. My doctor's probably younger than me, but probably not by much. Maybe he's in his 40s, maybe. But he knew Creature from the Black Lagoon, says he loved the classics. And I asked him if he remembered or was he around at the time when Channel 56 showed it on 3D and they sent out the glasses and the TV guide. And he's all excited. He said, I remember that. And we start talking about it. And then he looks at the shirt again. He keeps looking. He says, he looks a lot like that creature from The Shape of Water. I said, we don't discuss these two creatures in the same conversation. That movie's deplorable and shouldn't even be compared to the Creature from the Black Lagoon. But I'm just beating a dead horse. Howard Phillips Lovecraft was born August 20th, 1890 in Providence, Rhode Island, an American author of horror, fantasy, science fiction, and weird fiction. Best known for The Call of Cthulhu, The Shadow over Innsmouth, and The Dunwich Horror. Unlike famous writers like Stephen King, Lovecraft never saw his success while he was alive. He suffered from a number of phobias, and if you've read enough of his stories, many shine through. His fear of sea life, for instance, for one, particularly seafood. And I'll tell you right now, I don't blame him there. He passed on to the other side March 15th, 1937, of small intestine cancer. My favorite stories, other than The Call of Cthulhu and The Dunwich Horror, are The Rats on the Walls, The Colour Out of Space, Tomb, and Dagon. In 1965, the film Die Monster Die, starring Boris Karloff, tackles the Lovecraft story, The Colour Out of Space. And that as much as an endeavor as that story is, this film, for the most part, does a decent job. A radioactive meteorite mutating a family's estate. But if you want to see the best adaptation to date, that would be 2019's The Colour Out of Space starring Nicolas Cage. I talk about Die Monster Die back on Macabre Cast, episode 74. You can find that one on my YouTube channel. You're probably asking yourself why I haven't mentioned Reanimator, the movie based on the serialized story called Herbert West Reanimator, published in 1922. And that's because, hands down, if you are familiar with his work or not, or just a horror fan, chances are you saw or know of Reanimator. And if you saw it as a kid, dimes for dollars, a parent walked in on the scene with Barbara Crampton completely nude on a slab and the severed head of Dr. Carl Hill trying to, shall we say, unsuccessfully impress her.
Ew, seriously?
That is so gross.
If you know, you know. The 1986 film From Beyond, about a group of scientists that develop a resonator which allows you to see beyond the normal perceptible reality. But unfortunately, life forms in the other dimension can now also see you, and the result is terrifying. This was the weaker of the two popular Stuart Gordon films. Another great adaptation from book to film would be Dagon, which I believe is still available on Shudder.
Is this something you could share with the rest of us, Amazing Larry?
Greetings, Doc Mark and Karis the Little Mummy. Scary Larry here, and a lot to talk about. Hey Karis, how do you tell if a tree is a dogwood tree? By its bark. So this week's topic, everything Lovecraft. I can't say I've ever read one of his novels, but I will tell you some Lovecraftian movies I liked and didn't. I enjoyed Castle Freak and Dagon for its sheer weirdness. I like the color Out of Space, but my two favorites are Reanimator and From Beyond. I was rather bored with the Dunwich Horror, to be honest. Oh. I was looking through some pages of Lovecraft adapted movies, and it did pique my interest for further viewing, so expect further reviews. I noticed 2016's Shin Godzilla available on Max, so I sat and watched it. It was an interesting adaptation that left me confused at first. When the first iteration of Godzilla appeared, I thought it was a creature that Godzilla would do battle with. When it let out a roar, I caught on that it was going to be a rapidly mutating creature that would eventually become what we think of as Godzilla. I enjoyed it. Now, though it accurately depicted government ineptness in trying to figure out how to handle a crisis, I felt they focused too much on that and ended up dragging on longer than they needed. In my opinion, they could have tightened that up and be a great movie at, say, an hour and 45 minutes, rather than a good movie at over 2 hours. If you have Max, I definitely recommend it. I don't know where else it's streaming, but give it a watch. Now, I got a notice that my local Regal was having a Monday mystery horror movie for $5. Well, you don't have to tell me twice. I did go in completely blind. The cashier would only say that it was a horror themed, and even the marquee in front of the theater said Monday Mystery Movie. It wasn't until it began that I learned I was watching the newest adaptation of Dracula, or Dracula A Love Tale. First, this is way better than 1992's version. Now, my issue on this is in the title. I thought 92 was okay, a weird ending, but okay. Then I decided to read the book a few years ago. I strongly urge anybody in Hollywood, to read the damn book. Dracula was never meant to be a love story. In the book, the character Mina reviled and loathed the creature. She despised him to the end. Okay, rant over. I have to compare it to not only 1992's version, but a visual comparison to the recent Nosferatu. I had commented on Nosferatu that I found it visually stunning, but I thought the creature itself was ridiculous. This version is stunning visually, far surpassing that of Nosferatu. It does a more complete job of giving the story of Prince Vlad and what led him away from God and to be cursed. There is no what I consider big stars. In fact, the only one I recognized immediately was the priest, played by Christoph Waltz, brilliantly. He had the role of nemesis to Dracula down. It was just the right amount of dark humor. As discussed before, I am not huge on CGI, but they had some cool effects with a bunch of gargoyle statues. I'll leave it at that. For 3/4 of the movie, I was at a 4, and the last quarter irritated me enough that I took off half a star. In the end, 3.5 stars. If you read the novel, you'll understand. If you haven't, you'll love this one over Coppola's version. At least this one didn't have the audacity to title it Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's rare for me to say, but you need to see this one in theaters to appreciate the visuals. It releases Friday, February 6th, and will have had its first weekend run by the time this airs on Monday the 8th. Monday the 9th. All right, kids.
Those H.P. Lovecraft movie picks, Larry, are definitely the best of the bunch. Hands down, no doubt about it. And it's weird that you mentioned Shin Godzilla, because me and Jack-O-Lantern saw that back when it first got released to Blu-ray. It had a very, very small run in the theaters. But in my opinion, the Japanese Godzilla movies are the best, and we loved that movie. We thought it was great. Dracula, a love story, better than Coppola's 1992? Well, you know what? Without even seeing it, I could agree with that. As I've always said, I love Francis Ford Coppola. In fact, he's one of my favorite directors of all time. Except that film, and it's the casting. And I'll say it over and over again. I just really dislike the casting. And I think it hurts the whole film. As much money that went into it. And it's funny that you talk about, daring Hollywood to read the book. I've seen behind the scenes of the Coppola version, and they were all in the very beginning when he always does this thing where he gets actors to get to know each other, and they spend a lot of time together. Before they even started working on this movie, they met every day, and a different actor in the film would read aloud from Bram Stoker's book. So they all read it together as a cast, and you still got the version that you got. But I'll have to check out this new Dracula film. I have heard other things about it, and they've been all good. Dracula, a love tale. I don't know why they just didn't call it Dracula. Thank you so much, Scary Larry, for seeing it, so we don't have to.
And now it's time for Real World Horror. And now, here's your host, Dark Mark.
In 1988, Sharon Gregory was an 18-year-old psychology major at Greenfield Community College in Greenfield, Massachusetts. On an assignment, she had chosen to do a psych eval on someone she knew in town. Someone her twin sister Cheryl was uncomfortable about, 19-year-old grocery clerk Mark Branch, who most knew was obsessed with horror movies. Mark particularly liked the Friday the 13th films. Mark was also aware that Sharon was doing a paper on him. So on October 24th, 1988, in Greenfield, Massachusetts, Mark Branch put on a pair of black boots and a hockey mask resembling his horror idol, and headed to Sharon's apartment. What happened in that apartment may never be known, but her twin sister Cheryl found Sharon's body in the upstairs bathroom, stabbed multiple times in the head, neck, and chest. Sharon immediately notified the police and let them know about Mark, and the hunt for the wannabe Jason began. Mark Branch's car was found abandoned 13 miles outside of town. There was blood on the front seat and all over the console. The media ran with it, calling it the Friday the 13th killer, and sending parents' paranoia to an extreme level. Halloween was canceled, as the killer was still out there, somewhere. And then, over a month later, on November 28th, a tip came in to police from a local hunter who found Mark's body hanging from his belt on a pine tree. The medical examiner determined he committed suicide shortly after Sharon's death. The psychological profile Sharon was doing on Mark was never found.
Tune in next time to Real World Horror with Dark Mark.
Color Out of Space 2019, directed by Richard Stanley, starring Nicolas Cage, Jolie Richardson, and Madeline Arthur. This was Richard Stanley's first film in 25 years. He had been fired 3 days into production of the 1996 version of Island of Dr. Moreau. Color Out of Space is by no means an easy story to put to screen. It's the best story to let Nicolas Cage go full Cage, though, and that he does, and does so well. Cage plays Nathan Gardner, who moves his family into his deceased father's property. A meteor crashes into the land, and over time, some very bizarre events begin to take place. By the third act, the film's weird level goes unhinged. What may appear as ridiculous to some is far better than some harebrained explanation of what H.P. Lovecraft was great at: unexplained, creepy weirdness. I give this 3.5 out of 5 stars.
Go check it out!
The following program is rated TV MALV. It contains strong language and violence. It is intended only for mature audiences.
Metal Melody.
Hello, Doc Mark, Cowers the Little Mummy, and all the Macabre cast fans listening. This is Metal Melody. I did it again. This is Metal Melody checking in for episode 143. I don't really have too much to say this week, so I'll keep it short. Mark, I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed Beast of War because I thought it was a good film and definitely worth a watch. I will be seeing Strangers Chapter 3, so I'll let you know what I thought about that on episode 144. Also, I'm a bit confused because there's a new Dracula movie coming out, but I just watched a Dracula movie, I think 2025, but now I see there's a Dracula 2026, so I'm wondering, did I already see the 2026 and thought it was 2025? I don't know, because I saw it on the internet app, and sometimes, no, but usually they don't show the movies until they've been out. I don't know. Are there two, or am I dreaming? I don't know. Anyway, I did go ahead anyway and watch We Bury the Dead, only because I saw it was, on when I was looking for a movie, and I was like, let me check it out. I know Horror Chat Matt said, pfft, but I was like, oh, let me just watch it. Yeah, and he was pretty much right. The funny thing, to me, it wasn't so much a horror thriller. I feel it was more like a romance thriller, and if you've seen it and you know. It was just an okay movie. I don't really think it sucked, but I wouldn't watch it again. I'd give that 2 stars maybe. As for the topic of H.P. Lovecraft, I never read any horror. When I was younger, nor do I now. I just have seen movies. I know I've seen movies that were inspired by him, like The Haunted Palace with Vincent Price and Lon Chaney, which was freaking excellent. I love that damn movie. The Resurrected, From Beyond, and I'm sure there are more, but that's just a few off the top of my head. So that's it for now. I hope everybody is staying warm, and I hope you all have a fantastic week, and look forward to talking to you guys again on episode 144. Take care.
I could be wrong, Metal Melody, but I'm pretty sure the Dracula that you saw, if it was called Dracula A Love Tale, is the one that Scary Larry mentioned. And it's probably the same one. To my knowledge, there were not 2 Dracula movies that came out back to back in previous years. And We Bury the Dead, well, now that's 2 people saying it. I guess I will just avoid that at all costs. And you mentioned you never read Lovecraft, and I don't know if in general, you like most people, life is very time consuming, and a lot of us just don't have the time to read a book. Try audiobooks, and I mean free. Like every Lovecraft story is available in audiobook form on YouTube for nothing. So they're out there, and many audiobooks you can find on YouTube. And then I know there are audiobook clubs, and so on, and so on, and so on. Can't wait to hear all about Strangers Chapter 3. I still got to get on Part 2. I know you liked that a lot. Scary Larry didn't care much for it, but I do want to check that out. Let us know about Chapter 3. Thank you, Metal Melody, and we hope to hear from you again next week.
Don't touch that dial, monster kids.
Yeah, you don't know where it's been.
pipe down. It's almost time for the final thought.
Not quite, bro. Not before. Cobwebbed classics.
Ooh, yeah, Cobwebbed classics.
Cobwebbed Classics. Welcome to Cobwebbed Classics, where I dust off a lost, forgotten, or just plain unappreciated film and introduce it to, or maybe just remind you about it, so your spooky Saturday night might run a little creepier. This week's Cobwebbed Classic is 1983's Nightmares, directed by Joseph Sargent, and stars Christina Rains, Joe Lambie, Anthony James, that's right, the chauffeur from Burnt Offerings, Emilio Estevez, Lance Henriksen, Veronica Cartwright, and Moon Zappa. Anthology films are one of my favorites in the genre of horror. Nightmares is a great warm-up to your next horror-thon. There are 4 stories. The second, The Bishop of Battle, in my opinion, is the weakest. The first story, Terror in Topanga, about an insane escaped killer, I feel is the best. The third is The Benediction, about a priest who leaves the priesthood after losing his faith, but may find out how wrong he was during his trip across the desert. Last is Night of the Rat, about a family struggle with an unwanted guest. You heard the list of this film's all-star cast. Well, I didn't even credit all who crossed the screen with their presence in these terror tales. The cheesy-looking computer game sequences in The Bishop of Battle cost so much it nearly bankrupt production. The director, Joseph Sargent's career ended 4 years later with his film Jaws: The Revenge, and probably rightfully so. This was originally slated as a 2-hour pilot for a proposed TV series, but the network deemed it too intense. Each of the segments are all based on urban legends. This is a fun picture, and as I said, a nice warm-up for your horror-thon. But I would never put this in front of any greats like Creepshow. Taglines for this gem are as follows.
Just shut your eyes and scream. You'll never be the same. 4 of your worst nightmares come true.
1983's Nightmares is this week's Cobwebbed Classics.
Goditi questo episodio de Cast Macabro.
Thank you, Maria Monstalia, for telling our Italian friends to enjoy this episode of Macabre Cast. Narrative therapy, or sometimes called journaling therapy, is the writing of our fear into story form. It is suggested that by putting our fears onto paper, it separates us from them, allowing us to view them in an objective manner instead of becoming consumed by them. Make sense of the chaos and find purpose. So Lovecraft, with all his fears and phobias, was he just doing narrative therapy? As I've said earlier, he never lived to see his success, or the fact that in 2026, not only are his books still on the shelves of bookstores, but Hollywood for the last 60 years or so is still trying and struggling to put his horrific trepidations onto the silver screen. Every generation has its fears. Be it nuclear war, a plague in the guise of a virus, or maybe, for some, fear of the person we thought we knew. On another note, Valentine's Day is around the corner. The day where your partner will step up or follow up. It may seem like a Hallmark-made swindle. Don't let it get the best of you. It's just a day set aside to say life is crazy and busy, but hey, I love you. Ghoul Night, Monster Kids. Beware the moon. Keep clear of the moors. But most of all, remember, be good to yourself. This is Dark Mark, signing off. See you soon, I hope. This is a Macabre Theater production.
Subscribe us.